couple of really good new albums on this Sonic Obsession. Hi, folks. I'm John Whidden. That over there is Steve McLeod, and this is This Sonic Obsession. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of our favorite artists, David Gilmour and Nick Cave, along with his Bad Seeds. Both have new albums out, and we both really like the albums. I think the Cave album is just fantastic. The Luck and the Strange album, I think, is the best solo album that David Gilmour has ever done. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, on Luck and Strange,
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. It's what I would have expected. And the strange thing about this album was he went out and got, the tendency of old veteran musicians to get new ideas from young producers seems to be rampant these days among the classic rock community.
Yeah, because Gilmour uses a young fellow, Charlie Andrew, I believe is his name.
Yeah,
and
I've never heard of him before.
No, the Stones used Andrew Watt. Pearl Jam used Andrew Watt. Both producers bringing, I think, a new vibrancy, new life into some of these.
Well, I don't know. I'm not exactly
artists.
sure what they bring to it. You get worried when you hear that these old dinosaurs are going to, is he going to do K-pop? Is he going to do EDM or something?
Yeah.
You just don't know. And but really, on Luck and Strange, which is Gilmour's fifth album, all of those fears are allayed almost immediately when the opening keyboard sounds in the instrumental opener, Black Cat, begin. And then within seconds, you hear the majestic string bending guitar of
his unique sound, the David Gilmour sound.
Yeah, and then I went, oh, good, that sounds about right. And this album fits very nicely for me into anything he's ever done with Pink Floyd and his solo work. It's what you would expect: the soothing vocals of David Gilmour and the string bending majesty of these incredible, mind-blowing solos of David Gilmour are all over this album, which is exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you want to hear something new, something earth-shatteringly new, don't go for this album, because he's not reinventing the wheel here. It is just a wonderful David Gilmour album, and exactly what I was looking for. I can't speak for anybody else, but it's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, same with me. I find there's a new vibrancy to it. I find some of the songs are more alive, more upbeat than in some of his previous solo work, even some of the work that he did with Pink Floyd, of course. And I think I'm going to give credit to the producer. He also has some family members on the album. His wife, Polly Sampson, wrote most of the lyrics.
Which she's done for quite some time.
Yeah, she's done
going back to the Division Bell, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Pink Floyd's last studio
But
album.
his daughter's on, she's on one track on the
main album.
The main album.
Let's talk about that a bit.
And her name is Romany Gilmour. Yeah, his two sons are involved as well.
This is the album Luck and Strange. I bought the Blu-ray version. This is the Blu-ray audio version, and I got it specifically to get the bonus tracks, because the bonus tracks, there's 4 bonus tracks that aren't on the regular vinyl version
or CD version.
Or the CD version. You can only get it on the Blu-ray. You can only get it on the deluxe editions of the CD and the vinyl. So I decided I like Blu-ray, and one of the songs in particular, Luck and Strange Original Barn Jam, which has Richard Wright. It was recorded in 2007, about a year before Richard Wright died. And it is an amazing track. It doesn't fit stylistically with the rest of the album. It's more of a jazzy blues instrumental, and Gilmour's guitar playing and Richard Wright's keyboards are amazing on it. It might be the most sonically wonderful song on the album. So I really wanted to get that because I was streaming it first, and I got it on the Blu-ray.
Well, those barn jams, there's been audio and video of a lot of that material has been floating around for quite a while, and I've really enjoyed especially watching the videos for quite some time now.
Yeah,
and,
you're talking about the rehearsal videos, or
I'm talking about the barn jams?
Oh, I never saw any of those.
Oh yeah, they've been floating around for quite a while.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure exactly where they were done. I think some of the stuff was even done on his studio,
Houseboat thing.
the Houseboat studio, and I think they're just called the Barn Jams.
Yeah.
But anyway, I have seen some of the video, regardless of where it was, and the Richard Wright stuff with David Gilmour is fantastic.
Yeah, Romany Gilmour, his 22-year-old daughter, who, by the way, when you see her, is the spitting image
Oh, I know.
of David Gilmour when he was young, first
Yeah.
with Pink Floyd with the long hair and everything. I mean, it's amazing the similarity in looks between the two of them. One of the highlights for me is the song she does Between 2 Points, where she does the lead vocals and she plays harp on it. And she has this, really unaffected, pure voice, which sounds wonderful. And that's one of my favorite songs on this album.
Well, the other thing I noticed is on the Blu-ray version, and I think it's also on one of the CD versions. There's a number of versions of this album kicking around, but on this one, and I think it is on the CD version as well, or one of the CD versions, is Yes, I Have Ghosts.
Yeah,
with Romany Gilmour.
Yeah,
and it's a wonderful song.
Yeah, they were
it
doing.
Should have been included on the main CD
Well,
and album.
I think the Barn Jam could have been, but at the same time, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the album because of its jazziness and its bluesiness.
I think Yes, I Have Ghosts does. I mean,
it does.
I could have put that on there, and it would have been great.
And that song, I think, came out of the videos that Gilmour, Polly Sampson, and the whole family were doing during the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, I saw some of those too.
And I think that song came out of those sessions. But yeah, it's a wonderful song too. So if you really like the bonus tracks that you've heard, I would suggest getting either one of the deluxe editions or the Blu-ray, because the regular vinyl version does not have those.
No, and there is a vinyl version. There's a package. There's 2 albums, I believe, and it's got a book and the Blu-ray version as well.
Yeah.
It's costly, but as far as I know, it's got everything associated with this album until some new stuff comes out. Anyway,
a really lovely album. It's like it's like a warm blanket on a cold winter night. It's David Gilmour. It's familiar. It makes you feel good, and sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, the fact that he's brought the family in, I think that's great. I mean, he's working with these people. He knows them well, and they do add quite a bit to the overall sound.
Yep.
So the next album we're going to talk to is, and I got a whole bunch of goodies.
We're not going to talk to the album. We're going to talk about it.
Talk about it. Did I say talk to it?
Yeah.
Well, we could talk to it.
We could.
Anyway, we'll talk about it. Oh, I thought that was upside down. The Wild God at Play. Anyway, when I went and bought the album at Taz Records here in Halifax, I got a little bag of goodies with it. And I suppose I should tell you what the album is. It's Wild God by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Can you see it up there? Anyway, I got the bag. I got a poster. Look at that. And I got another poster. And I got a sticker. Well, the sticker is in the bag, so we don't have to put that up
show
there.
The album cover.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Anyway, and of course, I got the album. There you go. That came in handy to get that album. I think this is just a brilliant album. I got to admit, I wasn't crazy about Skeleton Tree, and I wasn't crazy about Ghosteen.
Well, those albums were so steeped in grief.
I know
that it was, it's not something you would want to play. You can't dance to it or anything like that.
No.
I mean, he famously lost
two
sons in terrible deaths. One an overdose and the other guy falling off a cliff.
So obviously, the grief was the main highlight, I think, of both of those albums.
Yeah, it's just palpable throughout both of those albums.
And it hasn't disappeared with this album, but I think Nick Cave has
life and joy is beginning to creep in.
Yeah, I think with this album, I don't want to call it uplifting, but there's a couple of songs on here that really are uplifting with the choir in the background and the musicianship. And I got up and I was like, wow, this is really good, because this is the Nick Cave that I came to really like with Lyre of Orpheus and Orpheus and
Slaughterhouse Blues
and Abattoir Blues.
Abattoir Blues, yeah.
And that's it. This album reminds me of that package that came out a number of years ago, and there's been a number of albums in between. But I think with this album, and you really got to dig deep with the lyrics on this album, and I think this is going to be dissected for a very long time, because I don't think anything. I think it's safe to say, really, nothing is straightforward with Nick Cave.
No.
When it comes to his lyrics,
No,
right?
there's a lot of spirituality in it,
Yeah.
and a lot of meaning. But this one, you can pretty much tell the meaning of where his mindset is now. It's called oh wow, how wonderful she is. That doesn't sound like the Nick Cave, or certainly the Nick Cave that we've been seeing in recent years.
Well, that's a song about a former girlfriend of his and a former member of the Bad Seeds. What was her name? Anita Lane, I believe, is her name. And basically, I think it's just, I think what he's saying is that in that song, people are always with us. I mean, he wrote a song about a woman who died a few years ago, a former girlfriend. Couple of the lyrics, let me see if I can read that. Oh, wow, how wonderful she was, how wonderful she is. So I think with that song,
I noticed that in the lyric.
Yeah,
he's in the past tense for a second, and then he goes back to the present.
Because I think what he's saying is that people never really disappear. They're always in our lives, in a memory, in a feeling, or whatever. And I think it's safe to say that that probably applies to his two sons too, right?
Yeah.
So it's very spiritual.
My favorite line from that is, "She rises in advance of her panties." I can confirm that God actually exists.
Well, there you go. So I mean, I'm stuck for words on that one, folks.
Yeah.
But even in a song called, or actually Wild God, he's turning to God. He turns to God, or he mentions God a lot throughout this album. And I think he's saying that God does exist, and it is good to have some faith, and sometimes you have to turn to that faith in order to accept things the way that they've happened. And that, of course, in this case, would be the people that he's lost over the last few years. So yeah, you're right. It's very spiritual, and you can read a lot into these lyrics. And I think the reference to God, I think he means that God is everywhere, and you really just have to accept God in your own way, and and faith in your own way.
It's a very uplifting album.
It is, yeah.
And I mean, certainly compared to the last few that he's had. And we saw him, I think we both of us saw him on Stephen Colbert recently. If you have never seen him being interviewed on Stephen Colbert, it happened within the last month. It is one of the best interviews I've ever seen on a talk show, a television show.
I agree.
I just came away with such immense respect for that man. I'm not talking about Colbert. I do have respect for him.
Well, I do too, because he gave Nick Cave the platform.
Nick Cave was tremendous in this, and he was talking about, you know, the losses in his life, how it's affected him, and how he's sort of come out of that dark tunnel into the light again.
Yeah.
And it's reflective on this album. And
well, I think with the interview with Colbert is that Nick Cave demonstrated, and he does on this album, actually he does on all of his albums, is that he's very thoughtful.
Yeah.
He's very passionate. He's very spiritual. He's a very caring man, I believe. And I got that from the Colbert interview.
Yeah.
And I've got that over the years anyway from listening to his music. And that interview, they talked about this book, Faith, Hope, and Carnage, which I went out and bought actually shortly after I saw the interview. I haven't finished it yet. I'm reading it, but it is a tremendous book. I mean, as I say, he just shows how thoughtful he is and how caring he is and spiritual he is. And it's basically an interview, a series of interviews with Sean O'Hagan. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful read. I mean, they obviously they talk or touch on some subjects that aren't pleasant, but he just talks about life and how you have to get on with life and accept what happens and find your own way.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's often said over the years he's not crazy about interviews, but he spent a lot of time with Sean O'Hagan putting this book together and talking to him. And he's just very honest and very straightforward. And I thought very refreshing, because Nick Cave, if you look at him, he can be kind of a scary guy.
Well,
right?
And he talks about that in the Colbert interview, about how, you know, his past, when he first started with the Bad Seeds in Australia, they were very much a punk band.
Well, the birthday party.
Yeah, the birthday party before that,
yeah.
right. And his relationship with the audience was very antagonistic almost.
Right. Yeah.
He treated them with disdain for
Yeah.
the most part. And he talks about that in that, I assume he talks about that probably in this book too.
Yeah, well, I haven't read the whole book, but he talks about almost everything. Yeah, I mean, I'm really anxious to finish it. I just wanted to point it out to everybody because it's what I've read so far. It's a very informative read, and you really get a good feeling for the guy.
But he comes across as a guy who believes in the transformative power of love and friendship and all of that,
and music
and overcoming all of the obstacles that he's had in his life and the terrible tragedies that he's had. And that album is just an absolutely wonderful album.
Yeah, there was one of the latest issues of Mojo had a really good feature on him, and I just want to share a couple of quotes. And he's talking about the album, of course. He says, "The songs seem to me to be about a series of conversions, one thing changing into another thing." And I think that really sums up the album in 2 or 3 lines.
Grief into joy again.
Right. And another quote, "Regardless of how bad it seems, we just keep doing beautiful things. And that's what the record feels like to me." So I think that along with the previous line really sums up the album.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I found it uplifting. I'm glad you found it uplifting. Nick Cave, they're going to be doing a North American tour early in 2025. So maybe I'll try to see a date. Love to see them live because I hear the shows are just incredible. That's sometime in the spring.
We should mention before we go that you and I are both going to see Gilmour.
Yes, we wanted to talk about that. We finally got tickets.
Yep.
After a lot of work.
Yeah.
And a lot of money.
Well,
but anyway, it was my goal years ago to see David Gilmour at the Royal Albert Hall in London because I watched a video that he did a few years ago of David Gilmour at the Royal Albert Hall in London, and it blew me away. My wife and I are heading there to see David Gilmour, and I can't wait. I'm really anxious. I hope he does a lot of material from the new album because I really enjoy it. He's got a great band. I've seen some of those rehearsal videos.
Yep.
They're great too if you haven't checked those out. They're a great watch. And I did see him actually at the Royal Albert Hall once with Jeff Beck. They did a couple of numbers together years and years ago. And that was fantastic.
But he was making noises in the summer that he wasn't going to do any Pink Floyd songs.
Right.
And he seems to have come around from the dark side and is going to do
No pun intended there.
Well,
the dark side, yeah. Okay.
I never even got that. So
there you go. There you go.
Very clever.
Who's quick here today, folks?
So he is going back into the dark side.
Yeah,
is what
okay.
You're saying.
Yeah.
So he is going to be doing some Pink Floyd songs, which is great. Because who doesn't want to hear Comfortably Numb live?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I did see one of the rehearsals.
My wife and I are going to see him at Madison Square Garden.
So we'll have reports on both of those shows. You can't go wrong with either one of those halls or rooms, as some people say. I mean, they're fantastic. Madison Square Garden and the Royal Albert Hall, 2 of the best venues in the world. We're very lucky, actually. So anyway, folks, that is our look. Raves for both Luck and Strange by David Gilmour and Wild God by Nick Cave. I could sit here all afternoon and talk about it, but I think we've got the message across, don't you?
I do.
Okay. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching this Sonic Obsession.